Yeah, very good evening, guys. Okay, so yeah, we'll start the session within 2 minutes. Okay, good. So, guys, yesterday I told you we'll be having a lot of programming platforms for Python. In today's session, we'll see a few platforms. Okay, I think you all are getting my screen. I think everyone is getting my screen. Good. So, guys, here we'll be having a lot of programming platforms for Python. In today's session, we'll be starting with a very interactive and very good programming platform that is Google Collaboratory. Initially, I'll explain you how to use this platform and how to write the basic programs kind of thing. I'll explain you that stuff in today's class. See, guys, for that here, so Google Collaboratory is a virtual programming platform which is especially designed for data science, as I already told you yesterday. So here, initially to open this platform, you need to go to browser. In the browser, simply type like Google Collaboratory. See here, guys, I'm simply typing Google Collaboratory. So after typing this link, this Google Collaboratory in the browser, here you can see the first link like Google Collaboratory. See, remember, guys, it's the very advantageous Python programming platforms. Whatever the scripts you write in this Google Collaboratory, that will be saved into your Google Drive directly. See here, you can see few projects like sentiment classification using Distilbert, list project, and protein sequence classification project. Like that, these all are the few projects which I worked previously. So whatever the projects you work in this platform, that will be saved into your Google Drive directly. But initially, if you want to log in into this platform, it will ask you to sign in with your Google credentials. You can enter your Gmail and password so that you can easily utilize this platform. So whenever you click on escape button, here you can see the description regarding this platform. Here you can read the description regarding this, what is Google Collaboratory platform and how to use this platform. You can see all these instructions if you want. But as of now, it is not required to you. I'll explain you everything very clearly. Whatever the things required to you, I'll explain you that stuff. So coming to that, here we'll be having file option. So coming to file option, here we'll be having new notebook, open notebook, upload notebook. So first option is new notebook. The sole purpose of this new notebook is to create any new notebook. Let's suppose if you want to create any new notebook to write a program or to write some scripts, whenever you want to create a new notebook, here you can click on this new notebook option. Whereas coming to open notebook option, let's suppose if you have worked on few notebooks previously, if you want to open a previous class notebook, if you want to open a previous class notebook, simply you can click on open notebook. So whereas coming to this upload notebook option, if you have worked on a local computer previously, let's suppose if you want to work on that notebook, whatever the files you worked on previously, if you want to upload those things in a Google platform, for that here it is an option. Yeah, tell me. Zoom कर दीजिए, Google Meet. Yeah, good. So it is about upload notebook option. See here, initially what I want to do is I want to create a new notebook. So for that here I'm clicking on new notebook option. So after clicking on this new notebook option, here new tab will be open. Here new tab will be open. So in this new tab here you can see here it will be open like untitled 15. Whatever the name you want to keep for the file, you can keep that name. So here I'm keeping our title like triple ITB intern. Let's suppose I'm giving title like triple ITB intern. So after that, I'm clicking on enter button. So whatever the name you want to give for this file, you can keep that name. You can keep that name. After that, here guys, you can see runtime option. So coming to this runtime, you will be having change runtime type. So by default here, it will be present like none. Means whatever the scripts you run here, whatever the programs you run here, by default, that will be run on your CPU. Whereas here we'll be having GPU option also. Whenever you work on very high-end deep learning or data science project, simply you can keep this none as GPU and you can save it. So remember guys, to use this GPU, here we'll be having limited duration. We need not to pay anything to use this GPU, but we'll be having restriction. Like every day we can use this virtually provided GPU for 8 hours. So we can use only 8 hours per day. So that is the restriction they provided. And it is a platform which is developed by Google. See guys, whenever you create a new notebook, after that here we'll be having connect option. So whenever you click on this connect option, it will connect with the Google server. See, for me it is asking like connect without GPU. As I already used it, this GPU more than 8 hours in today. So for that it is saying like connect without GPU. Yes, I am connecting without GPU, but for you guys it won't say like that. Okay, see, it is connecting with the Google server, initializing. After that it will connect with the Google server. Yes, it is connected with the Google server. So if you keep arrow here guys, you can see here we'll be having, see here, you can see here it is allocated a RAM of 12.72 GB. You can see 12.72 GB of virtual RAM provided by the Google, and they provided us virtual hard disk also. They are providing us 107 GB of virtual hard disk. So here it is a very convenient platform, and here virtually they are providing us RAM as well as GPU also. GPU, see, this Google guy is providing us 12 GB of virtual GPU. By using this virtual GPU, you can work on very high-end data science projects also. Okay, initially we connected with this Google server, and whatever the codes or whatever the scripts you want to write, you can write that thing here. See here I'm saying 2 plus 3. I'm running this portion. So whenever you want to run this portion, you can click on this button. So whenever you click on this button, this will be executed and output will be come down. See guys, here whenever you want to add new shell at the bottom. So whenever you want to write a code, here you can click on code option. So while clicking on this code option, you can write the script. So here 2 into 3. Let's suppose I'm writing 2 into 3. Here in the Python, comments will be written with hash symbol. In the Python, comments will be written with hash symbol. After the hash symbol, whatever the thing you write, that won't be evaluated. That is for your readability purpose only. See guys, here we'll be having shortcut like shift enter. So here shift enter is a shortcut which is used to execute any shell. So I'm clicking on shift enter in my laptop. So whenever you click shift enter on your laptop, this portion will be executed. So here 2 into 3, which is nothing but 6. We got 6 as an output here. It's about executing any shell. See, remember guys, if you see the file extension here, it is giving like IPYNB. Here file extension will be coming like IPYNB. Stands for interactive. I stands for interactive, and PY stands for Python. NB stands for notebook. So here it is said as interactive Python notebook. Why it is said like this means here we can write the program as well as here we can write the text information also. That's why it is said as interactive Python notebook. See guys, whenever you want to write a notes here, let's suppose here I want to create a block to write some text information. See, let's suppose here I want to write text like keywords. Here I want to write a heading. See guys, whenever you want to write some text information, here you can click on this text option. If you want to write text block, if you want to create a text block below previous line, you can choose here, or else if you want to write on the top, here you can choose text here. So here I want to write some text here. I want to write text like keywords. So here I'm writing text like keywords. What do you mean by keywords? See here, keywords. See here I'm writing heading. To write a heading, you need to start with an hash symbol. So here, if you want to write a top sized heading, you can specify single hash. Whereas if you want to reduce the size of the heading, you can increase the number of hashes. So let's suppose here I want to write a definition for keywords. Keywords are nothing but what it means actually, reserved words which their meaning is predefined to the programming platform. Programming. See guys, here I'm writing a little bit description. Reserved words which their meaning is predefined to a programming platform. Whatever the language you consider, to make programming very easily for the machine will specify words of meaning of few words. Those are said as keywords. I am running this portion. So whenever you run this portion, here you can see it is appearing like a heading, and for that heading it is appearing like a text. Like this, here you can write any text information, as well as you can execute any, you can write any code also. See guys, here by default code box will be created if you execute this portion by using shift enter. Now here we are not familiar with any programming language. Now I want to know the keywords present in Python. For that, here I'm asking help to Python programming platform. Here I'm asking help. So in the help, what I want to do is here simply I'll say help of, yeah, simply I'll execute this portion. So whenever you execute this portion, here you can see clearly, like here you can see it is still rotating, it's still rotating, and here you can see three dots. If it is showing three dots, or if it is still rotating, means this portion is still executing. See guys, whenever you ask help to this platform, help is a function which is used to take you into Python official organization documentation page. See guys, here you can see some description. In this description, if you read this thing clearly, enter the name of any module, keyword, or topic to get help of writing Python programs. See here, to get any information, you can enter that specific word in this box. That's suggestion it is giving. Let's suppose I want to know the keywords present in Python. I want to know the keywords present in Python. So for that, here I'm entering word like keywords in this bracket. So whenever you enter keywords here, it is showing all the keywords present in Python. See guys, in the Python we'll be having 35 keywords. And remember one more thing, all the keywords are small case letters only, except these three: true, false, none. These three are starts with a capital letter. Apart from these three keywords, remaining all keywords are small case letters only. To avoid confusion, remember like all the keywords are small case letters only. Still we are in the help. It is still iterating in the help only. To come out of this help, here we can enter command Q. We can enter command Q. So whenever we enter command Q, here it will be terminated. So whenever it is terminated, here you can see the right symbol. Means there is no instances are still running. Okay, that is the meaning of that this symbol. And here you can see MX player kind of symbol. It won't rotate if it is not executing still. Okay, now here I'll write one more thing. Here I want to create a one more box to write some text information. Here I'm creating one more text block. In this here, we'll see the definition for identifier. I want to write a heading like an identifier. What do you mean by identifier then? What do you mean by identifier? So coming to the identifier, these are symbols. Symbols which are used to denote anything. Symbols which are used to represent anything. So it might be a class, it might be a function, it might be a variable, whatever the thing it might be. To represent something, we need to follow a few set of rules. All those rules comes under identifier. Simply, identifier is a symbol which is used to represent anything in any programming language. That is the definition for identifier. After that, I want to write one more heading with the name variable. So coming to the variable, it is also a symbol which is used to store the value. Used to store the values. It is the definition for variable. It is the definition for variable. See here guys, remember variable is a subcategory of identifier. Whereas coming to this identifier, it contains variables, it contains function names, it contains class names, everything will be comes under this identifier. It means we can say this variable is a subpart of identifier. So here to define this variable or identifier will be having few set of rules. Not only Python, if you consider any programming languages, to define identifier or variable will follow same set of rules. Those are first rule is, see here I'm saying a equals to set. Remember guys, Python is a dynamic programming language. Here we need not to specify the data type before declaring the variable. Let's suppose if you consider C programming language, that is a static programming language. There, if you want to define any variable, first we need to specify the data type. Based on this data type, memory will be allocated to this variable. In this variable, this value will be stored. That is about static programming language. Whereas coming to Python, it is a dynamic programming language. Here, we need not to specify the data type. We need not to specify the data type. Okay. So guys, here simply we can say a equals to 10. See guys, here I am defining one variable. If you run this portion, it is not giving any error. If you run this portion, it is not giving any error. It means the first rule to define an identifier is we can use any character in the range of small a to small z or capital A to capital Z as an identifier. First rule to define a variable or identifier is we can use any character as an identifier. Coming to the second rule, here I am saying 1 equals to 10. If you say 1 equals to 10, it will give you an error like can't assign to literals. It means we can understand digits cannot be used as an identifier. That is the second rule to define an identifier. So 1a equals to 10. For the next time, I'm saying 1a equals to 10. If you say 1a equals to 10, here it is also not accepting. It is also giving syntax error. It means from this we can understand digit followed by character cannot be used as an identifier. Digit followed by character cannot be used as an identifier. After that, here I'm saying a1 equals to 10. Here I'm saying a1 equals to 10. So whenever you say a1 equals to 10, so it is not giving any error. So from this, we can understand that character followed by digit can be used as an identifier. Character followed by digit can be used as an identifier. Let's suppose here I will use word as an identifier. So here I'm running this portion. It's not giving any error. So from this, we can understand words can be used as an identifier. Whatever the word it might be, you can use word as an identifier. So next I'm saying my name equals to 10. Here I'm saying my name equals to 10. So here whenever you run this portion, here it will give an error. So from this, we can understand sentences cannot be used as an identifier. Or in another words, we can say in between the words, spaces are not allowed. In between the word, spaces or special characters are not acceptable. And here we can see one more thing, that is I'm saying at the rate equals to 10. It will also give you an error. So from this we can understand special characters cannot be used as an identifier. Whereas in between the words we can use underscores. My underscore name. If you want to use multiple words as an identifier, we can use underscore in between the words. See guys, these are the few basic rules you need to remember while defining some variable or while writing some class name or some function name, whatever the thing it might be. These are the few basic rules. See here, I'll recap all this stuff again. See, first rule is any character, any alphabet can be used as an identifier. Second rule is digits cannot be used as an identifier. And third rule is digit followed by character also cannot be used as an identifier. After that, character followed by word can be used. Words can be used as an identifier. In between the word spaces are not allowed. And special symbols cannot be used as an identifier. And finally, here, if you want to use sentences as an identifier, you need to use underscore in between the words. You need to use underscore in between the words. These are the rules to define variable or identifiers. After that, here I'll create one more text block. In this text block here, what I'll do is here I'll write heading like primitive or basic data types. So if you consider any programming language, we'll be having primitive or basic data types. The purpose of this primitive or basic data types is to build any data structures, we'll use this primitive or basic data types. So coming to Python, here we'll be having 5 primitive or basic data types. Those are integers, floating point values, complex numbers, Boolean expressions, after that strings. These are the 5 primitive or basic data types present in Python. Remember guys, it's a dynamic programming language. So here coming to the C and Java, those are static programming languages, whereas coming to Python, it's a dynamic programming language. The major difference between static and dynamic programming languages is, let's suppose, yeah, I'll take very simple example. Let's suppose you are opening some mobile application in your mobile. Let's suppose you are opening YouTube application in your mobile. What happens whenever you open YouTube application? Whenever you open that application, then only it will take memory from your RAM. And whenever you clear that application, whatever the memory consumed by that app, it will be released back. That is about dynamic memory allocation. Means whenever you are opening application, then only you are assigning memory to that application. Whenever you are deleting that memory, whatever the memory consumed by that application, you are releasing back that memory. That's about dynamic memory allocation. Whereas coming to the static memory allocation, here it is a different thing. In the static memory allocation, what we'll do is simple. It's like downloading some movie in your hard disk. Let's suppose you downloaded a movie which is having 2 GB of size. So irrespective of opening and closing that movie, it will take same amount of memory in its lifetime. Means here memory won't be changed. Let's suppose in the C language, let's suppose if you write int a equals to 10. So irrespective of this value 10, irrespective of opening and closing this movie, based on this integer data type, it will allocate 4 bytes of memory to this variable a. That's about static programming language. Whereas coming to the dynamic programming languages, here if you say a equals to 10, if you say a equals to 10, here we did not run this portion till. So here we did not run this portion, it won't allocate any memory. So whenever you run this portion, then only it will allocate memory. Whereas coming to this int a equals to 10, irrespective of running or opening or closing this file, if you say int means it will allocate 4 bytes of memory. That is the difference between static and dynamic programming language. So here it is a dynamic programming language. Here based on the value in the runtime, memory will be allocated to this variable. We'll see that thing now. So here I said a equals to 10. Here I'll say b equals to 12.6 something. And similarly I'll say c equals to 2 plus 3j. 2 plus 3j. After that, here I'll say d equals to, I'll define something in a double quotation. See here I'll write something like, yeah, here I'll write Python. See till now, remember like, sorry for the interruption guys. Okay, done. So here I'm specifying something in quotation. Till now we did not discuss it regarding strings concept, but as of now, remember like anything is specified in either single quotations or double quotation, that will be a string data structure. So similarly here what I'll do is I'll define something in a quotation. Sorry, here I'll write some Boolean expression true. I'm running this portion. Now I run this portion. See guys, here I did not specify any data type. I specified values only. So guys, in the Python, we'll be having type function. So here, type is a function which is used to know the data type of the variable. To know the data type of the variable, we can use this type function. So now here what I'll do is I'll say type of A. So if we say type of A. So whenever you say type of A, it will give integer as an output. Means here in the variable A, we'll be having integer value. Similarly, if you say type of B, if you say type of B, it will give float as an output. It will give float as an output. So means in the variable B, we'll be having floating point values. Here I did not say anything. So based on the value in the runtime, it is allocating floating point memory to this variable B. Similarly, if you say type of C, if you say type of C, it will give complex as an output. Similarly, if you say type of D, so if you say type of D, here it is giving output like string. Similarly, if you say type of E, here, if you say type of E, it will give Boolean as an output. So these are the different data types. Based on the run type, memory will be allocated to those different variables. It's about different data types and it's about type function. Now we'll see how to allocate memory to the different variables, how Python will allocate memory to the different variables. We'll see that stuff now. So here I'm saying a equals to 10. Let's suppose if we say a equals to 10, and similarly if we say b equals to here if we say some 12. Similarly if we say c equals to 10, after that if you say again b equals to some 13, and similarly if you say d equals to 10.0, how memory will be allocated to these variables internally. We'll see that stuff. How to allocate memory internally to these variables. We'll see that stuff now. So for that, I'll take help of drawing board. We'll see whether we are having any access here. No. I'll take my virtual drawing board. Don't worry. I'll take drawing board. Yeah, I'll take help of paint. See here, initially what we did there. See here, I'll change the color even. Yeah, I'll keep this color. Yeah, good. So here there we said a equals to some 10. And coming to the next, we said b equals to some 12 there. It's a very important thing, guys. That's why I'm taking help of drawing board. So here we'll be having c equals to 10 again. And there we said d equals to some, we said d equals to some 10.0 there. And there again we said b equals to some 13 again. See guys, coming to the Python, to assign memory to different variables, we'll follow memory labeling model. In the Python, to assign memory to different variables, we'll follow memory labeling model or memory naming model. To make you understand that stuff, here I'll take help of this board. Yeah, in this, here in the Python, it is a dynamic programming language. We need to give importance to the values. See, in the variable a, we'll be having value 10. So for this value 10, we need to assign some memory location. Here, I'm allocating some memory location to this value 10. And here, I want to keep name for this variable. I want to keep name for this variable. Here I'll give name for this variable will be a. So here name for this variable will be a, and here I'm storing value 10. And let's suppose I'm storing this value at some address x. It is some logical address. So coming to real time scenario, this logical address means, so I'll take same mobile phone example. In the mobile phone, what happens if you open a YouTube application? It will search free memory in your RAM. Wherever it finds free memory in your RAM, at that place it will allocate memory to this variable. Here also same thing. It will search for the free memory in your CPU. Wherever it finds a free memory, at that place it will allocate memory to this variable A. Similarly, guys, here we'll be having value 12. It is a different value. It is not same as 10. So for that, we need to assign new memory location. Here for the 12, we need to assign new memory location. And for this location, here name of this variable will be some b, and here address of this thing will be some y. Let's suppose I'm saying address as y, and here you can see value is c. See, value is 10. Again, I am assigning same value. For these two things, I am assigning same value. So for this, what I want to do is, I don't want to allocate new memory location. I don't want to allocate new memory location. Simply what I will do is, here 10 and 10, both the values are same. For that, what I want to do is, I'll allocate memory to this variable c also here. I'll allocate memory for this variable c also at the same location. It is said as memory pooling. So it is said as memory pooling. It's a very, very important thing. Remember guys, it's a basic interview question. What do you mean by memory pooling? In a simple words, we can say for the different variables, if you allocate same memory location, for different variables, if you allocate same memory location, that is said as memory pooling. For this memory pooling also, will be having restriction. For this memory pooling also will be having restriction. That is, for the integers in the range of -5 to +256 only will follow memory pooling. -5 to +256 only will follow memory pooling. -5 to +256 only will follow memory pooling. After that, for the floating point values, we won't follow memory pooling. And for all strings, will follow memory pooling. So you might get a question like, why we are not following memory pooling for floating point numbers as well as complex numbers? See guys, if you consider any programming language, we need to give importance to the performance, that is speed of execution. Speed of execution. So here, if you consider this integers in the range of smaller scale or strings, those will take very less amount of memory so that we can easily compare the values. If the size of the value is increases, to check that size of value with the remaining values, it will take more time. To avoid that performance problem, we are not following memory pooling for floating point values as well as complex numbers. And if you take very simple example guys, let's suppose you have two videos in your mobile. One is having 200 MB of size, another is having 2 GB of size. To open 2 GB of size, it will take more time. Whereas to open 200 MB file, it will open in a faster manner. So here also same thing. So if you check smaller sized values, it will perform in a faster way. If the size of this value is increases, to compare the value, it will increase the time. To avoid that performance problem, we are not following memory pooling for floating point values as well as complex numbers. See guys, coming to this D, here we'll be having 10.0. Coming to this 10.0, it is same as 10 only. Both the values are same. But it is a floating point value. For the floating point values, irrespective of looking at the previous values, we'll allocate new memory location directly. So here we won't follow memory pooling for floating point values as well as complex numbers. And for the integers also we'll follow this thing for smaller range scale of values only. That is in the range of -5 to +256 only we'll follow this thing. Here it will allocate memory to this variable D. See guys, if you observe here, I took 13. 13 is a different value. For that we need to allocate new memory location. Here I'm storing 13. Here I'm storing 13. And here I want to store this 13 in variable B. See guys, we already used this variable B previously. Here we used variable B. Now what we need to do? See guys, if you specify one variable value multiple times, what happens is whatever the value you are updating finally, that will be considered as final value of that variable. This will be considered as final value of this variable. And whatever the value we are having previously, that will be collected by garbage collector. That will be collected by garbage collector and it will goes to the trash memory. Whatever the value present previously with the same name, that will goes to the trash memory. See guys, here you need to remember two things. One is memory pooling. For the different variables, if you assign same memory location, that is said as memory pooling. And for this memory pooling also will be having restriction. We'll follow memory pooling for integers in the range of -5 to +256, and for all strings will follow memory pooling. So by considering performance constraint, we are not following memory pooling for floating point values as well as complex numbers. Don't worry, I'll show you that thing practically now itself. And here one more thing is, if you use same variable for the multiple times, whatever the name you keep for the variable finally, that will be considered as updated value of that variable. So if you look at the value of B finally, it will be considered B value as 13, and the previous value assigned to that variable will be goes to the trash memory. That is the thing you need to remember from this. So here if you want to take screenshot, you can take screenshot of it, and I'll go to the code session again. Good. See here I'm running this portion. Now here initially I want to observe the value present in B. See guys, for the variable B we gave value 12 first, after that we specified value 13. Whereas if you observe the result of B, it's giving 13. It's giving 13. It means whatever the value you are giving finally, that will be considered as final value of that variable. And here we'll be having ID function, stands for identity function. The purpose of this identity function is to know the logical address of variable. To know the logical address. To know the logical address of variable, will use ID function. The sole purpose of this ID function is to know the logical address of variable. So previously I shown you, see please keep your microphone in mute mode. Okay, good. So here previously I shown you ID, that is I wrote X here, I wrote X and Y and some Z here and some double x here. Let's suppose these are some logical addresses. To know this logical addresses, here we'll be having id function. It means where your CPU is allocating memory to this variable. Now, initially, I want to know the logical address of A. So if you observe logical address of A, here it is a logical address which is assigned by your CPU. Similarly, if you observe logical address of C, see here in the variable A as well as variable C will be having same value, that is 10 and 10. So for that we'll follow memory pooling. Here it is hence proved. So if you observe this value and this value, both are same. It means for both the variables we are assigning same memory. It is said as memory pooling. Similarly, if you observe the logical address of B, id of B, it's a different value. Id of B, it is in the B will be having value 13, it is a different value. For that we are assigning different memory location. Similarly, if you say id of D, though id of D contains value 10.0 only, in this id of D contains value 10.0 only. So here we are not assigning same memory location. It is a floating point value. We won't follow memory pooling for this thing. That is the thing that is about id function. So here it is hence proved. So how internally memory will be allocated to these variables and how values will be updated inside the memory. So that is the thing. After this, we'll be having one more concept called operators. We'll start one more new concept. Guys, coming to the input and output statements, we'll discuss that stuff very briefly in the next class. Don't worry about that. And before that, here in today's session, we'll start operators concept. See guys, you are familiar with the C and Java, I think. Okay, you can easily understand this stuff. Okay. Coming to the operators, what do you mean by operator then? What do you mean by operator? See, let's suppose if you say A plus B, what it means actually? Here we can say this one as an addition operation. Here it is said as addition operation. See, in between A and B, which symbol we are using? Plus symbol we are using. So whatever the symbol we are using between two values, that is said as operator. So here this plus is said as addition operator. In a simple words, I am writing this one as an operator. And here this A and B, here A and B are said as operands. It is said as operands. And this entire thing is said as operation. This entire thing is said as operation. So here it is said as addition operation. To perform this addition operation, we are using plus symbol. It is said as addition operator. And these variables which we are using or values which we are using, those are said as operands. So by looking at this thing, simply we can say, see here, operator. What do you mean by operator then? It is a symbol. Plus is a symbol which is used to perform addition operation. Like that, here in a simple words, we can say operator is a symbol which is used to perform some operation. It's a symbol which is used to perform some operation. Operator is a symbol which is used to perform some operation. See guys, coming to Python, here we'll be having 7 different operators. Here we'll be having 7 different operators. Out of 7 different operators, first operator is assignment operator. First operator is assignment operator. So here we'll be having equals to symbol. The purpose of this equals to symbol is to perform assignment operation. See, as you already familiar with this thing, so previously we used this symbol. See here, a equals to 10. It means we are assigning value 10 to this variable here. That's about assignment operator. So after this assignment operator, here we'll be having arithmetic operators. We'll be having arithmetic operators. Coming to arithmetic operators. So here, whenever we want to perform mathematical computations, we need to take help of arithmetic operators. So coming to the arithmetic operators, here we'll be having few symbols like plus symbol, minus symbol, division symbol, multiplication symbol. After this, here we'll be having floor division operator. After this, we'll be having modulo division operator. After this, here we'll be having power operator. These are the few arithmetic operators present in Python. So here, so whatever the symbol we are writing like this. So to make you understand this thing here, this symbol is said as floor division operator. Remember the notation, floor division operator. And coming to the next thing here, this one is pronounced as modulo division operator. And coming to the next thing, here we'll be having one more thing, star star. It is said as power operator. It is said as power operator. Okay. And coming to the remaining things, you are very familiar with this, I think. So plus is addition, minus is subtraction, this star is multiplication, this division is nothing but basic division operation. See guys, to make you understand this stuff here, what I'll do is I'll say 10 plus 3. What it is giving? It will give 13. Similarly, if you say 10 minus 3, it will give 7. Similarly, if you say 10 into 3, which is nothing but 30. Similarly, if you say 10 star star 3, you say 10 star star 3, which is nothing but 10 power 3, which is nothing but 1000, it will give in the output. So again, I'll take help of drawing board. So in this drawing board, what I'll do is I'll clear the screen first. How to clear the screen? Okay, good. So here what I'll do is simply here itself I'll perform this operation. Yeah, here I'll change the color. Yeah, good. So here what I'll do is, let's suppose if you are performing some division operation. So here let's suppose if you are performing A by B operation. Let's suppose we are performing A by B operation. What it means actually, here we'll be having B, and here something will be having A, and at the finally we'll get some reminder. Finally we'll get some reminder. So after this, after getting this reminder, we'll get a quotient. So here we'll get a quotient in a decimals, like a q point some will get a quotient in a floating point values. Let's suppose we get a value in a floating point values. Remember guys, whenever you want to get an output like this, so here whenever you want to get an reminder in the output, whenever you perform division operation, at that time you need to apply modulo division between A and B. You need to apply modulo division between A and B. Whereas if you want to get this entire quotient, if you want to get floating point value as an output in the quotient, we need to perform division operation. Whereas coming to the floor division operator, whenever you want to get integer portion of the quotient, means before the decimal point only, if you want to get in an output, we need to apply floor division operator. So I'll make you clear that thing within a 2 minutes. Now itself I'll explain that stuff. See guys, here I'm applying 10 by 3 operation. So whenever you say 10 by 3, here you will get output like 3.3333 something. So here we are getting this entire value in a floating point notation. Here it is a huge floating point value. Now what I will do is I want to get output till this decimal point only. Means I want to get 3 only in the output. To get integer portion of the quotient, here we need to apply floor division operator. If we run this portion, here we got output like 3 only. Means here we are getting integer portion of the quotient only. After that, here we'll be saving, we'll be say 10 percentile 3. It will give you the reminder. If you divide 10 with 3, here it will give reminder like 1. It's about arithmetic operators. See guys, arithmetic operators always gives numeric value as an output. So here in all the cases we'll get a numeric value as an output. And coming to the next here, coming to the assignment operator category. Coming to the assignment operators, we'll be having one more category, that is shorthand assignment operators. These are assignment operators only. It is not different operators. We'll be having shorthand assignment operators. So coming to this shorthand assignment operators, here we'll be having plus equals to. Remember guys, for all the arithmetic operators, if we add equals to symbol, that is said as shorthand assignment operators. For all arithmetic operators, if we add equals to symbol, those are said as shorthand assignment operators. The sole purpose of the shorthand assignment operators is, see guys, in the Python we won't have that is post increment or post decrement or pre-increment or pre-decrement operator. In place of those operators, here we'll be using shorthand assignment operators. To make you understand this stuff, here I'll take one basic example. In this example, what I'll do is I'll define A equals to 10 and I'll define B equals to some 12. Now, what I want to do is I want to update the value of A. I want to update the value of A. To update the value of A, here I want to perform addition between A and B and I want to add that result in variable A. So here to perform this action, to update value of A, what we are doing, we are using variable A for two times. So here we are saying A, again here we are saying A. And in between A and B, we are using plus symbol and we are storing this result in variable A. Means we are updating value of A. To perform this task, we are using variable A for two times. To avoid that thing, simply we can write like this, A plus equals to B. So it means what we are doing is we are performing addition between both the variables. We are performing addition between both the variables. After performing addition between both the variables, we are storing the result in left side variable. So here, whatever the symbol you are specifying here, that is the operation we are performing between both the variables. And whatever, see here we use it equals to symbol. It means we are storing or we are updating the result in a left side variable. So if you observe, after performing this action, if you see the result of A, 10 plus 12, which is nothing but 22. The value of A will be updated with the A plus B. Similarly, see both the operations are same only, but here we are avoiding multiple times usage of a variable. So now what I'll do is I'll say A minus equals to B. It means it is similar to A equals to A minus B only. So you can use any one of these two ways. Either you can use this one or you can use this one. Whereas if you write some coding exams like MCQ questions, at the time most of the guys might use this shorthand assignment operation. To avoid that confusion, here I am writing that stuff. So here if you observe the value of A, it will contain, so it will contain 10 only. So here what we said, in the A will be having 22. We are saying 22 minus 12, which is nothing but 10. Like this, you can apply different shorthand assignment operators. After this shorthand assignment operators case, here we'll be having comparison or relational operators. Comparison or relational operators. The purpose of this comparison or relational operators is to check whether some expression is true or false. So here the comparison or relational operators always returns Boolean expression as an output. These are always returns Boolean expression as an output. Here I will be having output like either, so it will give output either true or false. So coming to this comparison or relational operators, here we'll be having what are the symbols we'll be having? Yeah, less than symbol, greater than symbol, equals to symbol, not equals to symbol, less than, greater than, less than or equals to, greater than or equals to. These are few comparison or relational operators present in Python. These comparison or relational operators always gives, this comparison or relational operators always gives Boolean expression as an output. These are always used Boolean expression as an output. See guys, here what I'll do is, here I'll say 10 equals to 10. If you say 10 equals to 10, it's a true expression. That's why it is giving output like true. Similarly, if you say 10 not equals to 10, here we can say 10 not equals to 10. Here it is a false condition. So here, that's why it is giving, sorry, yeah, what I said here, I said 10 not equals to 10. Yes, both are not equals. That's why it is giving output like, sorry, both are equals, but here I said equals to. That's why it is giving false as an output. Similarly, if you say 10 less than 10, no, it is also a false. It will give output like false. Similarly, if you say 10 greater than 10, so here it is also false. Similarly, if you say 10 less than or equals to 10, you say 10 less than or equals to 10, it will also give output like true. See here I said less than or equals to. So coming to here I said strictly less than. Here I said strictly less than. Whereas coming to here I am saying less than or equals to. If any one of these two conditions is satisfied, it will give true as an output. That is about less than or equals to. Similarly, here what I'll do is, here I'll say greater than or equals to. 10 greater than or equals to. So here it is giving output like true. So here it is about comparison or relational operators. We'll be having four more operators. Those are logical operators. After this logical operators, we'll be having bitwise operators, bitwise operators. After that, we'll be having membership operators. After this, we'll be having identity operators. These are the different operators which we are having in the Python. We'll discuss these operators in a next class. And before that thing, guys, I'll explain you how to open this file again. So let's suppose we worked on the file called IIITB Intel. I want to close this file and I want to close this entire platform event. Now what I will do is I want to open the file which we worked previously. I want to open the file which we worked previously. For that, here what I'll do is simply initially we need to type Google Collaboratory in the search. So here I want to choose first link, that is Google Collaboratory. So here guys, I'm clicking on escape button. So all the notebooks which you worked previously, that will be displayed as it is. You can click on this thing by to open this platform directly. Whereas if you won't get this thing, so these all are the projects which I worked previously. Okay, done. So here simply you can click on this file option. Here new notebook is an option to create a new notebook. Whereas now I don't want to create a new notebook as I already created a new notebook. And I want to open a file which I worked previously. To open a notebook which you worked previously, you can click on open notebook. So whenever you click on open notebook option, whatever the file saved into your Google Drive, that will be shown to you. See here, 47 minutes back, we created a file with the name IIITB Intel. I'm clicking on this file. So whenever you click on that file, it will open your notebook. So whatever the things you write previously, that will be saved into your file. So here you can go through it and you can check everything, and at the bottom you can add anything. And here by adding this thing here itself you can execute, or else simply you can connect with the server again. And after doing all these things, so if you want to need a notes for reading purpose, if you need this notes, simply you can click on file option. Here at the bottom will be having print option. So if you click on this print option, it will be loaded, and I want to save this file. Now I will share this file in your WhatsApp group. So here, after downloading this file, here I'm downloading this file. After downloading this file, I'll forward it this file in your WhatsApp group. Okay, it's about the thing. And in the next class, we'll discuss remaining operators, and we'll discuss how to take user defined input in the Python and what are the different ways of printing. We'll see that stuff in a next class. Yeah, Neeraj, you can stop recording now. If anyone have any doubts, you can ask me now.